Who watches the watchers? Who guards the guards? Who oversees the good of the public trust, the nation? I'm not sure if we fully understand the implications of these words. So when we have situations with who watches the watchers, when we have those questions, and we've had, whether it is various government entities or specific law enforcement, we've had questions. Questions and accusations does not mean definitive proof of wrongdoing and convictions. Always remember that. The standard is the standard. But I do have to wonder, do we have an Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago? Or do we have an Attorney General of the government of Trinidad and Tobago? Because the nation and the government are not always the same thing. The government represents the nation internationally. The government is the elected representative of the people, but it is not the be-all and end-all of the nation. The interests of any given government is not necessarily equating with the interests of the nation. That's just practical reality. That's just an understanding, and it's not a weakness of democracy, it's a weakness of human nature. So again, I am left to ask, and I'm not saying these things to condemn the Attorney General. It's just that it looks a certain way, and it begs questions, and I'm willing to ask them. And I'm willing to accept reasonable explanations for them. It's just that in times like this, as I've said before, benefit of the doubt is in short supply, because we have had nothing to even indicate any sort of positive revelation to these controversial messes that tend to be, at least at times, but I suspect more often than not, of the government's own making. Let's not forget that the previous Attorney General had issues with regards to executing his duties with accuracy and competence based on his own statements. Not just my speculation, but you could say my interpretation of his statements. Fine. And this current Attorney General, who does he represent? It's why the good lady points to that one particular cabinet role as being a little bit different to the rest, because he is also the nation's lawyer. But who represents the nation when the interests of the nation are questioned by the nation to be different to the interests of the government? Who represents us then? The man appointed by the government, the man who serves at the pleasure of the Prime Minister, who is appointed and can be disappointed? So who watches the watchers? Ironically, the call for constitutional reform is more important than we think. I just don't know if the exercise is being given the precedence and is being given, well, is taken seriously by all those involved. If this is just going to be kind of buried and hope to die, and at the very least they'll pass something with as minimal as a majority as they could get away with, that remains to be seen. Or more likely the excuse will be, well, we don't have opposition support, whoever the opposition and government may be, because things could change, and I suspect the song and dance will remain the same. And that's the other thing that people need to understand. Why is it that when I ask these questions not to target at the current administration, despite the fact that their behavior at times is part of the reason why those questions are asked, but rather the possibility exists in the future for this to be an ongoing pattern of behavior regardless of who is in office, and things like that need to be fixed and addressed. But part of the reason why at the end of the day I don't just put the blame on politicians but on voters is because in the long run it is we who watches the watchers. We vote, supposedly. We determine, we elect. So that's, at the end of the day, the ultimate answer to the question. I always say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Hot is the behind that sits in the big chair. The prime minister sits in the big chair. He has to bear responsibility over all of the people underneath him ultimately, as any head of any entity, organization, or what have you. But with regards to politics and government, there is that caveat that above technically the voting public. And if we want to hold the leaders of government responsible for not leading, we have to hold ourselves responsible for not picking good leaders. Are our leaders bad? Well, results-based analysis at times suggests they are in various ways. Is that the be-all and end-all? I don't know. I just would hope that we don't put our head in the sand and hope it goes away. If we do that, well then, aren't we just abdicating our responsibility? Which ironically, at times, the politicians themselves have been accused of. I leave that there. With all of that said, we will get into a bit more that whole issue with the Auditor General. But I have some stuff that I want to bring up that I have delayed in bringing up due to schedule. And now there's a chance. So without further ado, it's time for today's Daily Review. And first place I want to start off is with the situation going on in the UNC. It kind of quieted down last week, and I was wondering, maybe those involved were stepping back, and then this week, it seems not to be the case because of what happened both last week Friday as well as the fallout within the media. It is interesting to see how this is played out because it's not necessarily something that I would have expected to happen quite this way, but it also begs its own question. Because I think at the end of the day, voters, whether you're UNC supporters, undecided, and to some extent even PNM voters, because you never know what will be the straw that breaks the camel's back and cause diehards. The stronger your love and your faith, the greater the turnabout when you are ultimately disappointed, right? Never forget that. It's true in relationships, and to some extent it's true with anything that any individual loves. If I love political party A, at some point, if I am ever disappointed enough, it will turn to hate, and then you will go to the other side, which you've probably seen, not a lot, but there have been scattered examples throughout in your own life, I'm sure, right? Now, the question that all voters have to ask is, which side is doing this out of ambition, and which side is doing this out of duty to the public? If you believe that either side could or are doing it out of duty at all. It could be that both sides are doing it out of ambition. The reverse could be true. It could be that both sides genuinely feel that they're doing the right thing, that this is what's best. At the end of the day, the opposition MPs have all spoken out at various times, I believe individually, not necessarily as a collective so much. MP Dinesh Rambali is one of them, as well as MP Anita Haynes. MP Rambali spoke about the fact that, or I believe he reiterated the point that the UNC, in his opinion at least, and it's an opinion that I cannot necessarily say I disagree with, is not winning under Kamala. And he pointed to the fact, interestingly enough, that at the time people pointed to Basil Pandey losing elections, and that's why they needed change. The reporters that they were pointing to the fact that he lost 2 elections. Kamala Persad-Bissessar has lost 2 elections, 2 general elections. Note, that means that it was 10 years ago when she was last in power, when she was last a member of the government. It's not as though she was a spring chicken and she was in her 30s and she has many more years to go. These are things that I think diehard supporters want to kind of sweep under the rug. You see this in other parts of the world, most notably North America, who has 2 candidates well over the age of 70, and it's kind of crazy to me that both of them are being put forward because I don't think there's a good plan if anything medically happens to either one of them, and we're assuming one of them will be the president. You could debate which one on your own time. That's not what I'm here for. And it's interesting what MP Anita Haynes said. She said, I will deal with the consequences of speaking out. And again, to some extent, there's something to be said about people, the first ones to move. The first ones to move carry the greatest risk. At times, they also could, experience or achieve the greatest reward. But in situations like this, usually what happens is the first ones make the move, get vilified for it, say the hard things that need to be said, whether because of their own personal ambitions or a sense of duty. But they're vilified for it. They're not necessarily easily palpable to the main core base who is resistant to change. That's why they're speaking out against it. So they're basically, whether they know it or not, sacrificial pieces to get the ball rolling for change, and somebody else comes along to reap the benefits. If Patrick Manning did not lose his last general election, one could argue Dr. Keith Rowley could have been in a similar situation, right? Maybe it's not that direct of a comparison. So she said she will deal with the consequences. I do wonder, really, there's the personal part of me that's wondering, what exactly is their mindset? And what are they willing to accept? Because I do think that a lot of times too many politicians are too concerned about their personal gain. And there will be times when, unfortunately, look, if you're going to start this ball rolling, see it through, and maybe at the very least you will earn the respect of those who could show judgment and are not necessarily just blinded by their own ambitions. And you might get something for doing the right thing. There's no guarantees when you do the right thing. That's the unfortunate reality of society. That's why it's always easier to do the wrong thing. There's no guarantees. History is littered with people that did the right thing and were cast along the wayside and faded into obscurity. And those who did it for the right reasons, they don't care. They don't care because the objective ultimately was achieved. They just might not have been the ones to actually finish the objective and lead whatever entity, the nation, etc., through that point. But they were responsible for getting the ball rolling. So it's interesting to see them speak out, but I don't know them personally. So I can't say with any confidence what their motivations are. It's easy to be cynical of the incumbent executive of the UNC. And I guess my opinions are formulated based on what I believe to be a similar set of observations that I have with some of these dissident opposition members. That's how I judge it. It's not that I hear what they say and I say, that sounds good, I think it's right. Rather, I hear what they say and it matches with what I already think. It's not contradicting, and it's making sense. And I'm not just saying that it's true because it matches what I think, but rather I believe these things to be true, and if it didn't match, then I would have to start to question everything, if that makes sense. But rather, all of the observations and criticisms others have for the opposition, I might add, these things are matching up and are painting a clearer picture where their performance is, again, called into question in a serious way, and ultimately speaking, take off your political biases and loyalties. We, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, should want all of our political entities and parties to be as strong as possible, because just like in the business sector, competition would breed innovation, would allow for the cream to rise to the top, and when merit is rewarded, performance is improved, and the main issue we have, whether it's ketchup or mustard, is the lack of performance. Think about it. How do you allow a government to go unchallenged when there are a lot of questions on their performance? Well, you have an opposition whose performance is equally disappointing. I'll just touch on one more topic. The Minister of National Security spoke in Parliament, I believe. They're answering a question to Independent Senator Paul Richards. He was pointing to potential legislation to fix issues with firearms legislation and the oversight of firearm dealers in particular. And I do wonder to some extent if he is potentially admitting to a breakdown in oversight. Now, yes, maybe they will try to put the blame on the commissioner at the time. You all know who he is, 2018 to 2021, right? But to some extent, I do wonder, okay, we have all these problems, and yes, there were investigations that were arranged, one of which was done by the Police Service Commission, whose investigation potentially has gone way outside of the scope of their powers, but, you know, that's up to debate. That's not necessarily saying that it's completely unethical or I disagree with the need for an investigation, just the manner that it's done technically might not be good. And unfortunately, when you cross certain lines, you have to ask certain questions because it's always a risk. Those lines are there for a reason, to guard against corruption. There's always the risk that something in bad faith is going on. So he's brought up the fact that, and he's pointed to the Stanley John report, he's brought up the fact that, look, at least in one case, a firearms dealer, he didn't have, it seems, well, he didn't have a book to present. It went missing, it was lost, it was destroyed, whatever. But my thing goes back to why is it, right, that we see various instances where, whether it's police officers, members of the Coast Guard, members of the Defense Force, there's no accountability with regards to the execution of duties in the manner by which the institutions, by their own policy and the needs of society, demand them to be executed at a reasonable enough level in order to properly carry out their jobs. We don't see accountability. So as much as he didn't necessarily spill all the details of the situation, I can't help but think, hold on, but to what extent is this due to the fact that our systems, particularly the Ministry of National Security, are not working properly because things are happening with no oversight. No one is watching these watchers. These watchers are getting away with all kinds of things. Some that we know about, some that we don't know about. Let's not forget, most recently, 2 prisoners died in custody of prisons officials under less than ideal circumstances, I could put it that way. So who watches the watchers? But all we have for it is new legislation. Have we actually seen any practical law enforcement initiatives to get to the bottom of this beyond just investigation? No. So I will leave that there. Where is the actual effort now? Are we just going to hope that new legislation, which might only be able to be passed by a simple majority, is kind of limping in with a less than perfect solution that is not actually going to solve the problem. Let's take a break. When we come back, the good lady is back, and she'll be here with me on Talking Point on WESN, the Content Capital. We'll be right back after this. Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
And we're back, and better than ever, because we have the good lady herself, Karen Shera, attorney at law, former Minister of Finance, legal scholar, disappointed in far too many of her students. Anyway, let me not go there. Let me not speak for the good lady, right? Karen,
that's not true.
That's not true. I just assume that I think it's anyway, let me not say anything more. Karen, good morning. It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while, and good to be back, Sean. I did miss you all, and I did miss the whole WESN, and of course, the good people who tune in to listen to this program every day, and I'm happy to be back.
And it just so happened this week.
Yes,
I
my
kid
God.
you not, folks. Karen had something to do, so she went abroad for personal business. And during that time, you know, we got into a lot of more political discussions, even more than what Karen gets into. But then now this serious technical matter of government, it's not just bubble and bacchanal, technical matter comes up this week. And it involves the Minister of Finance, and we have a former Minister of Finance who has, I'm sure, you know, gone through this process to some extent, right? Not like this.
Exactly.
Not like this, though.
Exactly that. And I don't see it as, if I could say, really technical in one sense. Used in technicalities, but it's really a political issue.
Well, yes.
And there's no question in my mind, and in fact, of course, that's what we're going to speak about today. Sean and I always say, well, what are you going to talk about? It wasn't hard to decide. Today was the one.
I didn't tell you, but this was at the top of my list as well.
Yes,
I would have been a little disappointed if you didn't want to speak about this, but...
Yes. So we did. It wasn't hard, you know. She said, Karen, what do you want to say? Oh, my God, it's, you know. So there we go. So I'm going to go quickly and dive into it, and it's a continuing story, so... I just want to be mindful of that, but clearly, we're looking at, and from my point of view, it's definitely attempts at political interference in the office of the Auditor General. And my disappointment, I had said that I didn't even want to speak about the Attorney General, and this is, but of course, this morning I read now he's saying he was not covering all her legal costs. So what is his role? I've dealt with this issue before, so I'm going to start first with the Auditor General issue, which is what I came really to speak about. And then we will
maybe get a little
bit into the Attorney General.
Because ironically, we have the role of the Auditor General, but also to some extent this is bringing up a question with regards to the role of the AG, something which your commentary predates Reginald Lamour and this situation.
Faris Arawi and so on. But let's dig into the matter. I think what we're really looking at briefly is two pieces of legislation. In terms of the Exchequer and Audit Act, and we're looking at the Constitution and specifically Section 116 of the Constitution. So those are the two pieces of legislation that we must focus on, and then we have to look at some deeds. And I guess that's where we talk about technicalities, but the technicalities are very politically focused. And the reason for that is, what is the point, what is the issue here? What is the role of the Auditor General? You can go there on the website. There's a thing about the role and function, and Section 9 tells you what the role is, and the role is really a gatekeeper of the public monies. She or he, and now it's a she, really in the role of ensuring that the monies spent are accounted for, there's no wastage, there's no extravagance, there's no corruption, or potential corruption. So she prepares what you call the public accounts, and every ministry or every department, state enterprises can also be included, will send in their accounts for her to prepare, at the end of the day, the Auditor General's report, which has to be tabled before the Parliament and presented in the Parliament, both in the Senate and also, of course, the House of Representatives. Now, the question arises as to when must these various ministries and various state enterprises and various departments send in their accounts. Well, it says clearly, both in Section 24 of the Exchequer and Audit Act, says very clearly that it is within 4 months after September the 30th of the year in question. And then it sets out the documents that you're required to submit to the Auditor General. So the cutoff date, therefore, for submission would be January 31st of the next year. And in this case, the account we're talking about is the 2023 accounts and the Auditor General's report of 2023, for which the cutoff date for submission of any documents to the Auditor General for the purposes of her or him preparing the report is January 31st of the following year, which in this case would have been this year, January 31st, 2024. So that is in the legislation. If you want to extend the time, it also does provide for a resolution to be passed in order to extend the time. But you can't do that before the cutoff date, because once the date has arrived, which is January 31st of that year, and this year, then the passing of a resolution would have to be made prior to that cutoff date. So in this case, it appears that the Ministry of Finance, which is called the Treasury, had submitted the public accounts to the Auditor General for the preparation of her report. And among the documents that the Auditor General would provide, would be required to be submitted to her, is a statement of the revenue with a full accounting of the amount stated. Also a statement of expenditure, etc. But we're dealing with the statement of revenue. So apparently, by the January 31st deadline, the Ministry of Finance, the Treasury as it's called in the legislation, had submitted the public account revenue for 2023, which was about 61 billion. Thereafter, we understand that after that date, the Ministry of Finance, the Minister of Finance says that they discovered an error and made several efforts to have the error corrected, which would have increased the revenue by about $2.6 billion. And the Auditor General got that request was made in, I think, March. They said they discovered it within the last week of February, and I think the request to increase it was made in March, and a number of correspondence was sent to the Auditor General. The Auditor General is then required to prepare as I said, the report. And now both the Exchequer and Audit Act, and now we're going to Section 116 of the Constitution, which of course supersedes any other legislation, provides that she must, well, the Section 25 of the Exchequer and Audit Act says, within 7 months after September the 30th, the Auditor General shall submit her report or his report to the Parliament, and that is Section 25 of the Exchequer and Audit Act. So that meant that she would have been required to submit her report by April, I think in this case, I think they said she submitted on April the 24th, but I think she had up to April the 30th, because that would have been the 7-month period. So that's provided for in the Exchequer and Audit Act, Section 25. Now, you turn to the Constitution. The Constitution says that she must, or he, the Auditor General, again, it repeats it and says that the Auditor General must submit a report to the Senate, the Speaker of the House, as well as the Minister of Finance. And of course, it has to be within that period, which in this case would be the cutoff point for her, would be April the 30th. She submitted the report on April the 24th. This Constitution then says that after receiving the report, both the House and the Senate, the Senator, the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House must immediately after must table or present to the Parliament or to their various houses at the next sitting of both houses. So upon receipt, the next sitting of both houses, that report must be submitted. That meant the report would have been submitted, should have been submitted according to the Constitution by April the 26th, because that was the next sitting, because she submitted it on April 24th, right, and the next sitting was April 26th. Right? So that's what happened. Well, what happened is that instead of the minister submitting and tabling the report, he then asked for an extension of time for the accounts to be submitted to the Auditor General, which means that beyond the January 31st. And that request was now being made after the time had elapsed and after the time for bringing a resolution for extension of the time with no explanation given. And the reason was this. This is where we come now to the nub of the whole matter. The whole matter is that in her report, the Auditor General stated as a disclaimer that after having presented the report by the date of January 31st, the Minister of Finance, accounting for revenue of about 61 billion, after that date, starting in February, March, a number of correspondence was sent to the Auditor General requesting that the figure of 61 billion be replaced with a figure of about 64 billion, in other words, increasing the revenue by 2.5 billion. Now, I believe the Minister expected the Auditor General just to replace the figure and not to say that she's amending the revenue accounts. She's not amending, but just replacing. When clearly she submitted a report, what she did is she said, revenue 61 billion dated January 31st, amended revenue 64 billion dated January 31st. And then she added a disclaimer and saying the reason why there's this difference between the two figures is that the second figure, which increased the revenue by about 2.6, 2.5 billion, that revenue was increased, was not verifiable, was not, she could not verify the increased amount, although efforts had been made, and that amended amount was submitted sometime, I think, in April or so on. In April, I think she said that she received the amended statement. Well, I think that made the minister very upset, because the fact that she put a disclaimer and saying the reason why she's putting the two figures and also saying she got the second figure after the deadline of January 31st and no resolution was made prior to that date, and the fact that she put a disclaimer was because she was not satisfied that they had accounted for the increase in the revenue. And in fact, I think she went as far as to say that even up to the last moment, they still could not tell you where the 700 million, I think 700 million, they couldn't account for it, even if they said there was a mistake made by the central bank. I think they're saying it was an error on the part of the
returns, right? So tax returns then would reduce tax revenue. Right. VAT, it was VAT returns, so hence why.
Right, so it's a central bank error. But the point is, she said that she had put a disclaimer, and that is set the Minister of Finance obviously got very angry about it, and he sent her a pre-action protocol letter, and essentially saying that, what it was really saying is that she's saying that I'm not changing this, I'm not changing, if you want me to write down the two figures, I'm going to put on both. I'm going to put on the 61 billion, which you submitted within the period. I'm going to put in the 64 billion, and I'm going to say amended. What he wanted to do, what he wanted her to do, and I expect it has been done before in the past, is just to accept the new figure. But I expect that the new figure would be accepted even after the cutoff date if the Auditor General was satisfied that the figure could be verified. But it was clear that she was not satisfied, which is why she said amended statement, put in a disclaimer, and said the reason why she is doing that is that she could not verify the increased revenue. And she put that in a report, and clearly he did not want that report tabled before the Parliament.
Well, I just want to interject here, because it seems as though the way how he wanted it to be handled, with a lack of documentation provided, right? The allegations of the post-dated, right, second correct figure, and to her to just accept it. To some extent, if she did that, then the errors of this whole thing, she would more or less be now responsible for, because she would be accepting the situation without any sort of proper justification in a written form. Well, why did you just accept this figure, right? Because you have the original error, that's bad enough, but errors happen. But then the ministry did not double check until after they submitted their reports to her. So they don't have a leg to stand on to say, well, we're going to change that information now after the fact. And the lack of documentation, then to expect her now to just accept it.
I think
because if it comes out, it'll be on her.
Yeah, I think what they are saying is that mistakes have been made in the past. And when mistakes have been made in the past and they have been discovered after the cutoff date of January 31st, they bring it to the attention of the Auditor General. The Auditor General will be given the verifiable data,
Information,
documents,
right.
so that she would say, okay, well, you all did make a mistake, I'll just accept your new figure and just replace it with this new figure. And no one would, not necessarily, I'm not going to say that no one would know, but since she's satisfied that the new figure is the right figure, that would be the figure that would be put in a report without mention of amendment or anything. In this case, she said that when she got that letter from the Attorney General representing the Minister of Finance, when she got the letter, she sent a high-powered team over to verify the claim that the central bank had made an error. And she said her most senior auditors, and in spite of all the efforts, they were not able to get any documentation, any verification that the new figure was correct. So, as a result, she was not willing to replace the old figure with the new without saying anything. Apparently, it may have happened in the past.
But to reiterate the point, she doesn't answer to the Ministry of Finance.
But I'm just trying to, what I'm trying to say is, the issue really is, it is clear that she did not think that they could validly increase the revenue take. And she was not prepared to put in the figure without the public knowing, without the public knowing, protecting her own self.
Protecting herself. That's the point I'm making. If she did what they wanted her to do, and this came out, because this is not a situation that might have happened in the past where things were verified. If she did that, she would be the first one on the chopping block. And also, to be fair, I don't think it would be responsible of her in the interest of the country of Trinidad and Tobago for her to accept it.
Well, yes, and it's clear the reason she did not accept it. The reason she did not accept it, which she said, it is not true that, because there is a disclaimer, she explained the disclaimer, and she said the reason why she put the two figures, and she put them both figures and put amended, and with the amended statement, she put the date of January 31st. The reason why she put a disclaimer is because she was not satisfied that the Treasury Minister of Finance had been able to explain the error. And secondly, those documents were not, these revenue accounts were an amended one which they could not, that is the Ministry of Finance, the Treasury, could not verify, and therefore, and secondly, they did not submit it by the cutoff date of January 31st, but submitted it to her, I think sometime in March or whatever.
Yes.
So the point about it is that she's exposing them, because she's the Auditor General. She has a responsibility to protect she's a gatekeeper of our public monies, and what she's saying in her report is that she's not accepting that new figure, and she's letting the public, the Parliament, the House, as a public officer, know that that new figure, that 2.6 billion, they have not satisfied her, and she's not prepared to put her neck on the chopping block, as you say, and risk her professional exactly. Yeah. And what happened is, and this is the kicker which you referred to, is this, and you know, that's why the Constitution, Section 166, has a provision to protect an Auditor General and other public officers from political interference, because it provides, that's 116.6, it provides that I want to get the exact wording of 16.6. It says the exercise of his, well, they mean his or her, the exercise of his functions under the Constitution shall not be the subject to direction or control of any other person or authority. That is her protection. The Constitution is the highest law of our country.
Won't you argue that telling the Auditor General use this figure instead, and reportedly you have no justifiable reason to make this change after the deadline, is not you telling them to say the truth, it's you influencing them?
Not directing. That's not influencing.
That's directing. Sorry, directing, yes.
That's not influencing. Directing her to do something that goes against the very nature of her job. Her role and function is to prevent exactly any kind of political interference, to ensure that when she presents a report to the House, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that the report is she's satisfied that the public accounts, the revenue, the expenditure, whatever it is, has been properly accounted for, so that when she presents her report and submits her report, which would be by April 30th, the 7-month period, she's satisfied of that report. Now, as I said, I'm sure in the past there have been instances after the cutoff date that they have discovered an error. She's not going to take the word of the minister. but would verify it and not be satisfied that was a verifiable error, and that she would therefore replace the figure, and the public would not be any the wiser, nor do they need to be, because she's satisfied that the new figure is the correct figure. What happened in this case, she did go to try to verify the new figure. And having sent a high-powered team, was not satisfied that they could verify or substantiate the increase in revenue of over 2.6 billion. And she said, I'm putting a disclaimer in my report, you know.
So we have 2 legal letters now. Pre-action protocol letters have been traded. It seems as though this is going to have to be played out in the courts, because I don't think the government...
They wanted to get rid of her.
They want... Is it that they want to get rid of her?
Get rid of her, and they can't. You can't do it just like that, because what you want to see, the thing you'll have to say is ill health, death, whatever, and then it may be gross misconduct. And clearly that's where they're heading. We'll talk about...
But what would be the potential ground to stand on? Because the Attorney General has said that the Auditor General has had bad legal advice. But he has not actually explained that statement, because he's saying you need to tell the people the truth. Well, what is his justification, right? Because his word, let's not forget, has been severely compromised by his own actions. That is to say, his integrity publicly has been questioned because of what he did in Miami in an American court, right? And he has made the error to think just because we might have stopped speaking about it doesn't mean that we have accepted the situation as acceptable and will sweep that under the rug.
Okay, well, I will just say this, because we did talk about the Attorney General yesterday, and we did mention that.
Yes.
But when I read the papers today, I said, oh my God, I mean, this is going too far now. I can understand him saying, listen, the Minister of Finance came to me, and you are clearly at variance over an issue. I cannot represent both of you.
Exactly.
But therefore, he said, go ahead, we'll pay the legal fees. And that's what she did. Right now, this is why it's not a good thing. And in England, they found that out. That it's not a good thing to have your Attorney General sitting in cabinet all the time, because attorneys general have a dual function. They're not only a member of cabinet, and therefore have responsibility to the politicians, so to speak, but they have a responsibility to us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore it's a dual function that is a very difficult one to discharge. But the problem here is that, having said, okay, I have to represent my client to the best of my ability, and that's what he does, now you're telling her that your legal fees that you are now claiming they have to be paid, I didn't intend for you to cover all of these areas that you have included in your, I guess, in your requisition.
Oh, okay.
And what I'm saying is, I mean, I am so disappointed in Mr. Attorney General I'm very sorry, I didn't even want to speak about it, but I'm going to say, I don't think you're going to recover from this. Your reputation is really...
This is Trinidad, eh?
No, you're not. No, they don't forget. They do not forget. You just said it. They do not forget. They don't say.
That is true.
They don't say, but they don't forget. Right? And he is not going to recover from this, in my respectful opinion.
I would argue that I don't know if this is what you meant earlier, but because 2 different senior public officials are at odds, he should not have gotten involved directly with either side.
Because no, I wouldn't say that. I would
you wouldn't say that?
No. I wouldn't say that.
I would have preferred if that's what he did.
No. I don't know if I could say that. This is a very unusual situation. One is a political position, a cabinet appointee, Minister of Finance. Other one is an office created by legislature, statutory creature, and the Auditor General. So it's not like 2 cabinet ministers at war with each other, and so on. But
I know that, but his other role as the Attorney General of the country, not of the administration, would lead me to think that to some extent there is a reasonable, let's just say, if the Auditor General faced a legal challenge from someone outside of the government, wouldn't the Attorney General, technically, his office, be the office to represent her first and foremost?
Yeah, but this is an unusual situation, so I don't think a situation like this has ever really occurred before, where you have the Attorney General having to
pick sides.
So this is what he did. I mean, I'm not. He said, "Go get legal counsel. We'll pay for it." because I can't represent you and represent the minister. He can't do that. But the problem is now is that having said that, and she goes and gets her legal representation, he's now saying that the representation and the fees that they are prepared to pay were very limited, very restricted. And that's where I have a problem, because it seems to me now he's pulling out the political...
Right. Yeah, he sounds to me more like a politician that doesn't have any technical background in law, as opposed to being a senior counsel brought in primarily because he is the opposite of his predecessor, someone who is a respected lawyer who does not have an extensive background in politics. So I know the answer to this question, but it's almost as though he and the Minister of Finance kind of underestimated the situation and how far it could go. But I know you usually don't agree with that. You usually think, no, they know damn well what they're doing. And
no, I think they've gone rogue. I think this government feels, you know, that the UNC has gotten themselves in such a tailspin of bacchanalia that even if they are very unpopular, that they are going to win. They're going to win the next election. So they've gone rogue and they're doing what they want. And you know, you can get mad as you want, but we'll do what we'll do what we want, and that's exactly what this minister is doing. He's doing what he wants.
All right, we have to take a break, but I'll just say this. I actually do wonder if Reginald Amor is now an example of what happens, of some of the negatives when someone that does not have political experience weighs in and at times put his foot in his mouth. And, you know, it's interesting because sometimes you want that. You want the person not involved with a history of bacchanal. But then it might come with other disadvantages. And is this an example of that? I'm starting to think so. Of course, that's not a definitive proclamation on his career as Attorney General. But like Karen, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. No, and he is supposed to be the improvement. I don't know if that... Anyway.
Let me just say this. I had this argument with someone else. He has to represent his client to the best of his ability. So I'm not going to necessarily argue with him about that, doing what he has to do as Attorney General representing the minister. Where my problem is now you tell her, well, your car represents you, go and get, we'll pay the legal fees, and now you want to not pay the legal fees.
Me as the representative of
that
the
is
person
where my problem is.
Who is opposing you in court
that's where my problem
is telling you what you can or cannot do in court. That is a conflict of interest. Anyway, we have to go. We have to take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines. Stay tuned to talk about WES, and we'll be back after this.
This is WESN's News on the Hour. Thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. Police Commissioner commends intelligence units for dismantling international drug network. Manhunt underway for suspect in Rio Claro sexual assault case. Penal man is granted bail. With the details, I'm Keaton Shaw. The Commissioner of Police, Earl Edward Christopher, praised the vital role played by police intelligence units and the effective dismantling of a major international drug trafficking network, leading to the arrest of a significant international criminal. On April 5, 2024, a collaborative effort involving the Spanish National Police, along with international agencies such as the Drug Enforcement Administration, the National Crime Agency, and law enforcement from the Netherlands, France, Ireland, Trinidad and Tobago, as well as other regional and international counterparts, culminated in the successful dismantling of a prominent international drug trafficking network. The criminal syndicate, primarily operating in the Spanish Levante area, was intercepted while attempting to transport a ton of cocaine via sailboat from Suriname to Valencia. Authorities are on the lookout for a Rio Claro resident accused of sexually assaulting a 36-year-old woman. In consideration of the sensitivity surrounding the incident, identifying details of the victim are being withheld. The incident came to light around midnight on Sunday. According to the victim's account to law enforcement, she was waiting for her boyfriend outside the Rio Claro Health Center on Divertile Street in Rio Claro. At the time, a mutual acquaintance of her boyfriend was accompanying her. A penal man was granted bail when he appeared in a court yesterday after being charged with robbery with violence. Lawrence George, 32 years, of Clark Road Penal, appeared before Master Shabiki Casabon yesterday at the San Fernando Masters Court. He was granted $25,000 bail with surety or a cash alternative of $6,500. He was also ordered to report to the penal police station once a week and have no communication with the victim. He is scheduled to reappear on May 27th. The charge was laid following an incident that took place on Saturday, April 27th. According to police reports, around 4:30 a.m., a 38-year-old patron at a bar on the Southern Main Road in Davie was approached by a man who allegedly accused him of owing him money. The suspect allegedly dealt the patron several blows above the body and relieved him of a cell phone, car keys, an alarm, and a wallet containing identification cards and a debit card. He then escaped in a vehicle. That's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you for watching. We'll have more for you at the top of the hour.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Okay, we're back. The conversations, I now realize your earpiece is not in the air.
Oh, that's why
the conversations off air. Right?
Where is it gone?
It's there, like, right on your shoulder, but don't worry about that, Karen.
Oh,
Folks,
yeah, I got it.
the good lady is here. Yes, actually, no, you don't need to worry about that because we are going to open up the phone lines, and now is the time we want to hear from new viewers. And of course, we would expect you to have questions also for Karen. So the phone lines are up there on your screen. So we have a caller already. Morning, Petty Valley.
Good morning, Sean, and good morning, Miss Nunez.
Morning, morning.
Okay,
Sean, first question to you, and then after Karen, I will have a conversation with you.
Yes.
Sean, first question to you. Who is the Attorney General client in this case? Who is the Attorney General client?
I as a non-legal professional, actually, for what it's worth, and it's not worth a lot, I slightly disagree with Karen, but her opinion is greater than mine, and I acknowledge that. I think that the Attorney General, in theory, could have taken either one as his client, right? And there are various circumstances where he would have taken either one on his client. And as Karen said, this is a unique situation. This is how he's decided to handle it. I don't agree with it, but I'm not a lawyer, nor have I ever been in Parliament.
And for time, Karen is a lawyer, is a bush lawyer. The Attorney General client is for the state, is for the government, business. Okay, I could be wrong. Let me move on.
Right.
Ms. Nunez,
yes.
I want to give you a series of incidents on the other side that what you presented in with this case here with the Minister and the Auditor General. Mr. Inbert said in Parliament, this is his word, I don't know if it's truth or not, we could debate who is lying or who is not lying. He said there was the error, when they found the error, they was trying to contact the Auditor General for days. She wasn't answering her phone at all. Emails were sent to her, everything, she wasn't answering the phone. She answered her phone to get her the 25th of March in her car driving. Then she said to him she will call him the next day. The next day, she didn't call him. They sent out emails again, they sent out things, she never responded. She sent a high committee staff from her, and the ministry had the high committee staff on the 27th. That was a deputy came to that meeting, Auditor General. After that meeting, the deputy went back to her, no response. No response at all, no response. So, in that case now, what you want the finance minister to do then?
Okay,
when the thing after, hello?
No, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
When the after table in Parliament the correct thing. So then now there are no choice. The hands are tied now to send the action thing to her. So that's just a series of events are given you on the other side. Can you
yeah, well, okay.
state how
I'll answer
the
you
lady
because
with-
time
Okay,
constraints.
call on, yeah. Quick.
Okay,
Okay, then,
so
have an idea.
the thing about it is we talk about the law. It's not about the personalities or anything. So I'm looking at the law, which is why I differed with Sean regarding the Attorney General. He said the minister came to him first. It was a unique position. And he said, we'll pay for your legal fees, get counsel, and we'll pay for it.
Right, sure.
And because he does have a dual function, he's not only a cabinet minister, but he also represents the people of Trinidad and Tobago and their interests. So it's a peculiar position that he was in. And I didn't, where I felt, where I had difficulty with is that the requisition for the fees, he's saying, well, we didn't agree to that amount. And I found that
he's
very
controlling
telling.
her budget.
Yes, and that is a very telling. That's one way of controlling people, control their funds. The other thing now is it doesn't really matter how many times they called her. Because I think you need to understand what the law is. She is a creature of statute, right? And the Exchequer and Audit Act says that by section, I think 24 of the Exchequer and Audit Act says that you are to submit your account within 4 months after September the 30th, or if any resolution is made, I suppose, prior to that date. So January 31st was the cutoff date, and they did submit it. So the point about it is that once they submitted it to her, as far as she's concerned, she's not taking any instructions from anybody, because Section 116.6 says it very clearly in the Constitution that she is not protected from political interference.
I just want to say quick, both versions of events can somewhat be true. The minister, hold on, the minister did not confirm that she did not reciprocate all of his attempts. He only pointed out when she did not reciprocate his attempts. Right, and that's the other thing. The minister admitted they only checked for this after the deadline. Why did they do that? That's their fault. They can't blame her for their fault. We have another caller from Diego Martin on the line. Good morning, caller. We're on air.
Good morning, Mr. Small, and good morning to the Honorable ex-Finance Minister. Okay,
right.
a quick thing. History really teaches us things. You know, remember the Sat Sharma issue with legal costs?
Yeah.
Didn't John Jeremy say the state will basically cover the costs for the Sat Sharma issue when they tried to remove him out of office? That is what I can remember. I might be wrong, eh?
Yeah.
Now, the second thing is, if the error came from the state organization, from the central bank, from the ministries, why are you want to discipline the Auditor General for doing her work? I want to know if anybody from the central bank, inclusive of the governor, will be sent home, because this is much more serious than the foreign exchange issue with Jarala. That is my take. And I want to touch on something quickly. The deaths of the baby. The PAHO audit. Listen to me.
Yes.
For that to be finished within 2 days, something is wrong. We didn't see the scope of the investigation, etc., from PAHO. And there's an old Chinese saying, things that is cheap is no good. And I don't want to say it was a Chinese audit, but PAHO. But I want to think that PAHO came down to Trinidad to basically audit Trinidad reporting into PAHO to see if Trinidad is giving them correct information that goes into a global database. It has nothing to do with the operations of the Ministry of Health, that we as citizens want to know what caused the death of the baby. I'll go and say no more and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I just want to confirm, I'm not going to deal with the NICU issue because time won't allow, but I just want to just say that all those, her not answering, you know why she's not answering? Because January 31st passed. That's why she's not answering. January 31st not passed, right? And then also too, and you why don't you send her the evidence to change the figure? I am sure that has been done in the past, and clearly she did investigate, because she said she did, and she was not satisfied, and she protected herself. He cannot instruct her. Well, he cannot instruct her after January 31st. That's why the Constitution gives protection to positions like that, prevent political interference, because if he had his way, she would have changed the figure, never put amended, never put a disclaimer, never said anything, just accepted the new figure, and that is what would have been in the report.
I think Petit Valley, the issue is, even the defense, the words of the Minister of Finance and the Attorney General, they don't really add up to looking anything good, right? So we're not even necessarily going to go with what the Auditor General says alone. We're trying to take what the Minister and the Attorney General is telling us, and it's not really looking good. And in the case of the Attorney General, he's not really telling us anything pertinent with regards to the issue. Exactly.
Yes, the
right?
law, that's what is bothering me. The point is there's Exchequer and Audit Act. January 31st was the cutoff date. They had submitted their revenue accounts. It was 61-point-something billion. So come in and call in to tell her what?
The Attorney General is not speaking, is not giving us justifications in the law. He's just giving us political talk, right? She should do the right thing. And the Minister of Finance, who is giving us more technical details and justification, is admitting, yes, we made errors, and then we made more errors, and then we wanted her to just, you know, rewrite the error.
Just replace the figure.
Just replace the figure.
And which would mean that we would not be the wiser about the error.
No.
But she is saying that she sent her team and the figures could not be verified.
No.
So what is she to do?
The thing is, Kola, I could appreciate that the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but right now, well, right now the truth is seeming more on the side of the Auditor General than the Minister of Finance, right?
And that is
because we're not really getting good explanations.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's so much that they're not telling us, that they're speaking around, that they're omitting, right? In fact, I understand that he needs to protect himself legally from liability, etc., but when Senator Mark said, well, would you put all of the, you want to say this in Parliament where you're protected, you want to call out the Auditor General in Parliament where you're protected, are you going to be willing to put the documents of this whole situation and lay it out in Parliament too, so we could see for ourselves what was dated what the figures were, what she was given? And he said no, right? And while I understand that, yes, on principle, you know, you don't just reveal everything, you know, when you are in a legal situation, we have to ask, what is there to hide?
No, but he didn't mean to that he would do. You know he wouldn't. He's trying to say you can't lay it out because you can't satisfy the auditor General or us that figure should have been the figure that you wanted her to put.
Diego Martin on the line. Good morning, caller, on here. Caller, good morning.
I thought my pizza dropped out.
I don't know. Is he on the other line? Oh, okay. Well, that's... I don't know if he was maybe disconnected, but we took the call almost as soon as we got him. Folks, the phone numbers are up on your screen. You could call and have your say. I know this has been the big story for the last 3 days. This is the third day now. Keaton and I waited on Monday. I spoke again on it yesterday because as the news keeps coming, I'm liking the situation less and less. The thing is, I'm not necessarily saying who is lying, but the conflicting version of events implies somebody is trying to mislead us. But I'll leave that there. We have Digger Martin on the line. Good morning, caller, on here.
Hi, good morning, Mrs. Mr. Shera and Mr. Small.
Morning, morning.
I just want to little thing what I have to say. If that Auditor General, when he goes to court, and you start a debate in court and lawyers have asked a question, and if she had accepted what Mr. Imbert had asked her to do, she just put on the extra money on it and sign it off. The person will ask in court, why did you sign off that? And you know you could not account for it.
Exactly.
So what is going to happen there? She's going to be held liable and she's going to probably lose her job as well.
No, she wouldn't lose her job. She'd keep her job.
Maybe not.
No, but the truth, that's exactly what you're saying, caller. Exactly right. Yeah. You know, if they couldn't verify it, she's not going to change it. That is her job, to have the accounts verifiable. And it was not verifiable, and therefore she protected herself, as she's entitled to do.
Yeah. But I just have to say that gentleman in question here, he has no right to be in finance. Because I know some things that, boy, I tell you, I wouldn't say it.
Okay.
Real serious things, eh?
Yes.
I wouldn't say it. So I leave it like that. I am a person who like to call out people and so on, but it happens to my family and many other people as well. But people who work for me used to and work for him. He used to tell me, "Oh, kind of boy, I tell you," and I verified because same thing happened to my family as well. So whatever happens, you know, but I just hope that everything works out well and they get over this problem because he's looking for the country and for the people who are on the outside looking on.
Yeah.
It's a credibility problem we'll have right now for this country if they don't set this and set it amicably and somehow or the other. So you have a good morning, both of you all, and thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, caller. Well, the one silver lining is the fact that so many bigger democracies have credibility issues of their own that at the very least will only look so bad in comparison. Take that as a silver lining. Make that of what you will of it. We have Cascade on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
I want to really caution that I heard you all say that the government or the minister is targeting the Attorney General. I don't know that to be true.
Auditor General.
The Auditor General. Yes. I don't know that to be true. I know that there is an impasse over a fundamental matter, but from where I sit, I don't know that they are targeting the Auditor General. And I leave the matter there for the
I understand that, but it's, I guess what we're saying, and I understand the word of caution.
I think I see what you're saying. That it's yes.
It may appear so to us.
It's the situation occurs, right, and of course the Auditor General is involved because the situation. But it's not like it is a concerted effort to undermine the office in general. Rather, this situation is just playing out, and of course she's going to be involved because you know it's her job. But before we continue commenting, we have Pitty Valley and then San Fernando. Pitty Valley, morning.
Morning.
Yes, quick, Mr. Pitty Valley.
Oh, Ms. Karen, I forgot to ask you. Is this a breach or not proper that Ms. Lachmial is on the team with Mr. Ram Logan for against the state for the Auditor General? Could you answer if that's ethical?
Yeah, that is a good question. I wouldn't have even have thought about it, but because she is a politician, you know. I mean, she's in
sitting senator.
Yes, sitting senator. So it's a good question you've asked. And I can't say yes or no and on that, but probably she should not have been. My initial response would be that given this has so many political implications, clearly it would have been better that she not be part of the team.
She wouldn't necessarily have a bias against her client, but this is a matter of national importance, and she will have a bias in some regard to her political leanings.
The optics aren't good, but I can't say yes or no. That's my initial response.
Okay, we have San Fernando on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Morning, San Fernando.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Karen.
I know the voice.
Never a dull moment in Trinidad to be, you know. Oh my God. You know, I have to. Let everybody here on the side of caution. Have anyone seen the pre-action protocol letter that the Attorney General sent to the on behalf of the Minister of Finance to the Auditor General?
I don't believe so.
No, I mean,
exactly.
I think
exactly, and I think that letter would bring some more light. Trust me, it will bring some more light on the entire situation. Now, I have to agree with Karen, Sean. If it is that the Attorney General couldn't wait to see, let me see if the Auditor General is going to send me a letter asking me for representation. The minister came to him and he had to do, on behalf of the state, he had to represent the minister.
Right.
So it wasn't a question of having to have it. It's not a question of let me wait and see. So, and hence the reason why he told her to go and get representation. I think where the issue comes about, where the Attorney General has shown his political petticoats, as my grandmother would say, is because the Attorney General, they have an issue with the fact that Freedom Law Chambers is the attorney that she went to. That is the issue here, you know. That is the issue, the Freedom Law Chambers issue. And now they talk about Senator Lakshmi Diyal is on the letterhead of Freedom Law Chambers because she previously worked there and she's a consultant there. And that part of it, with she being a sitting senator in the House, in the upper house, I have no problem with that, and that will bear itself out. Where the issue is, another part of the issue we have to ask is where there are two pieces of this puzzle that nobody is talking about, and we have to get information on them. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance and the central bank. Those two have a lot to say on this matter, and I wait with bated breath to see how this is going to bear itself out. Have a good day, Karen.
Yeah.
Thank you, caller.
And I will go further, actually, to say that I think it's not a question even waiting. I think he would have to represent the cabinet colleague, and what he did was send it to another, get a legal representation outside. The problem with that is we wanted to limit the funding, and that's the problem.
It's a conflict of interest. You are representing her legal opposition.
He can't do both.
Right, that's fine. But you are going to then tell her, yeah, but we're not authorizing all the funds for the defense.
That's where the problem is. That's amazing.
We have Shagonas on the line. I still want to say one thing about the power situation, but we have Shagonas on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Hello, lady and gent.
Morning, morning.
As far as I am concerned, the Attorney General is the Cabinet's advisor, right? And of course, he's supposed to advise the position regarding the law and official policy. And in the public service, there's a thing you call the paper tree. So I don't know what anybody, right? You write what it is, you send it across. Deal with any problem. I try to follow what's going on with that, and I find so much conflicting thing. I stay on. Secondly, you had this thing about this HDC tenant who was evicted with 2 children, and she owed some kind of almost 70,000, and I wonder if she ever paid any rent. And she was, I think, the wards made employed. They didn't say she was out of work or anything like that. So, and since HDC is for poor people, what about the cleaner? And people like that, the yard boy, them don't pay rent. And not only that, over the last few years, I have heard a number of governments speaking about people who are not paying rent in HDC and they're taking action. What somebody should investigate is what those people did about this case. You had in Tobago somebody build some big drain across to the beach. Now, as far as I know, that is illegal. You cannot interfere with state land without permission. And I don't know who gave you permission. And again, this business you have in Gaza, people talking about
going around the world.
The Israeli do this and the Israeli do that. As far as I'm concerned, this whole thing was started by the Palestinians, the Hamas. And not only was started by them, they continue doing it. They continue shooting in Israel among civilians. And when Israel shoot back at them, they claim they're killing civilians. But if you're in the middle of civilians, what do you expect? And my final statement won't be long. He was asking some time ago, why did government change property tax and put this new law? Well, you have any questions for me?
I'm listening.
You broke up, caller. We didn't hear.
We had property tax.
We just heard property tax, yeah.
That's what we heard, property tax.
Yes, well, you say why she changed the land and building taxes to this.
Oh, why was it changed?
Nonsense they have. Yes, because the government did a complete research on that, and it never said What happened? If there's research anybody here, where is it? Why are they hiding it? I understand from what my outside sources say that they went and get some Americans to advise them. The Americans are not more property. The value system. We are systems are very too really
a man of a lot of interest in a lot of matters, and we could not even begin to answer, but we are very happy to hear his views, though.
Your first point and your last point we didn't fully hear, so I apologize. I think the first point was about the Auditor General situation. We didn't hear all of it.
No.
We just heard the part about conflicting information, so I just assume. I agree with you that at the end of the day, it's not that we know enough to proclaim anything definitive on this one is right and that one is wrong. It's just we're not liking what we're hearing from one side more than what we're hearing from the other side. That's it. Just one side not looking so hot.
But I will just say to that, I don't know if we, the issue here is the January 31st was the cutoff date.
Yes.
So all this talk about what you did after January 31st, if she ignored you, she could ignore you because January 31st.
Same kind of weight if it was before the deadline.
Yeah, but so she must not obey the law. And clearly, whatever they were saying to her, she obviously believed that whatever information they were sending to her department did not substantiate the claim that they should increase the revenue accounts. And she, it's the law, and that's why you have the Constitution to protect persons who are in that type of office. So I don't agree that it's such a difficult issue. January 31st came, January 31st passed. You asked her to amend the accounts after that date. She clearly felt that she could not do so because the law did not allow for it, and replace it with this new figure. She was not prepared to do that.
And that's why, Mr. San Fernando, one of the things I would like to hear from the Permanent Secretary, because you call out the Permanent Secretary as one of the two people that we need to hear from. I doubt we'll hear from them. Maybe we will.
They don't have to
but
say anything.
One of the things that I would like to understand is why did the ministry double check the figures after they sent it, which was at the cutoff date?
Yeah,
the date has already passed. You should have double checked those figures. You should have had this process done, not incomplete, and then you hope you could backdate it, rhetorically speaking.
But Sean, I want to make the point is that she did go even after that.
Yeah,
she said
no,
she did it.
I know.
And after having done that, she could not find the evidence to support the increase.
Sorry, do we have a call on the line? We have San Fernando. Very quick, San Fernando.
Yes, good day to you and Ms. Tichera.
Morning.
I have a quick question for Ms. Tichera.
Sure.
As a professor emeritus in law, right, can you advise, since the Honorable AG is unwilling to provide legal advice or legal representation to the Auditor General, now, and she has, maybe she won't have to go private. If she go private, would he have to pay any kind of cost from his pocket? Because if the government you represent do not represent you, do not want to give you support, and you seek legate elsewhere, I don't know what part of the Constitution will provide that she could sue him directly and make him pay. Now, secondly, to Mr. Sarah, Mujhe Shadi Karogi. You know that, right?
What is that?
Sorry, what was that, caller?
Mujhe Shadi Karogi.
And that means?
Who is that?
Will you marry me?
That's for you. That's obviously not for me.
That's for you. No, not for you, sure. No.
Okay, here's the end of the show.
That's okay. Thank you, caller.
Good joke.
St. James is on the line when we are technically out of time, but St. James, you're on the air. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
I call because if the issue is presented concerning this issue between the Auditor General and the Minister, if those information is factual,
right,
I think you all have omitted the most important consideration, which is that of the role of professionals as the auditor. If she, in fact, certifies that this change should be made without having the ability to verify them, she could be struck off the role of auditors professionally. And to me, that's the crux of the argument.
Yeah. Okay, I think we agree on that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think anyhow, that she did the right thing. And Section 116, she's not state directions from the Minister of Finance, and that's why 160 the Constitution protects her. So I don't see it as being so complicated. I see that he wanted to have his way, did not have his way, and this whole issue has come out in the public domain.
If I interpret what you said correct, Caller, she's not just going to willy-nilly play with her career like that. You know,
and her responsibility to the country. And in regard to the Attorney General, I think we have a different opinion. He had to
that's minor. I think the real issue, as you pointed out, he's dictating costs to her, and that's not. I don't know about that, boss man. You know, I do get the
anyway,
sense.
I'm a little confused there because of the caller you had before.
I do get the sense sometimes that the Attorney General forgets that he is a public official and not just a private practicing lawyer dealing with his private clients. That's sometimes I just get that sense. Anyway, just quick with Pahu, I'll say this: the witnesses, the testimony of the parents. It's not going to be the be-all and end-all, right? They're not going to necessarily be the most 100% reliable. They have the smoking gun witnesses, but they were there. They're involved, and their testimony, whether accurate, not accurate, riddled with holes because of emotion, it's still necessary if, in my opinion, you want to get a holistic view and then you try to sort out the truth from all the various points of view. So it begs the question, how extensive, how accurate is this PAHO probe? And I do wonder, we got doctors. Doctors are not necessarily going to be trained investigators. So how valuable it's going to be, I expected it to be longer. I'm not saying that I am supposed to be right, that it should be longer, but when the parents said that they weren't interviewed, that is a red flag. It's not the be-all and end-all, but...
It's not, you know, at all. Because as a matter of fact, I get the impression, I know a little bit more about NICU, and I won't say why.
Okay.
And then I am also biased in that regard, because I know how hard those doctors and nurses work. I know very well personally, I do know that, and I have the highest regard for Dr. Timothy. So I would say that. I think what I feel the problem was identified to have something to do with the blood, and the blood that was being used, and therefore the focus, if you realize, the report seemed to, the PAHO team seemed to focus on the storage of the blood, the refrigeration of blood, I think that was the focus. The parents are going to be obviously hurt and upset. My son was a premature, a preemie, and I was told when I was going into labor early that he had a 50% chance of surviving.
Right.
I'm sorry I wasn't here for the NICU discussion because I would want to have added something, but the point about it, I don't necessarily see the 2 days as being necessarily too short, because their focus is on what caused the infection, and if they were able to identify and focus where the problem was, which it seemed they did, they investigated
it. To be fair, one of the current things that the parents talk about is blood transfusions are involved in a lot of these cases.
Yes,
so there's some merit to that. I will just say this though, your experience when you had your son, that's a different group of doctors and nurses.
But I'm talking about NICU now.
Yes, and one of the nurses was one of the expectant mothers, and she and all.
Yeah, I'm not getting into this, and I don't know enough, and I'm not going to
and to be fair, Karen, that's the other thing. The issues that the parents had with the customer service of the nurses could be a completely separate issue with the cause of death in the NICU. So
maybe the lawyer needs too much. It's too much of the lawyer.
Sometimes, honestly, I think people need to understand, right? Their background rarely informs their perspective very strongly. That's and I find myself pleasantly amused when I make these observations. I had a similar thought when I had Gary Griffith on last week. I said, yes, this is the soldier / whatever. And not to say that it was anything bad, but I understood because many people with his background have a certain perspective just like him, and I understand that. I don't always agree with it, but I understand it. So the lawyer in you, it shines through. The one-time parliamentarian minister of finance also shines through, and I'll leave that there. Ex-minister. Folks, we are over time, but I want to thank all the callers for calling in with their questions. Some raised some good points. Some, put us in check a little bit, made us have to come back and maybe justify things a little better.
And I have to think of the answer to that question, huh?
Oh, and we got one very interesting question. I will leave that to Karen to answer on her own time, right? Karen, thank you for joining me. It's been a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, as Sanfana said, never a dull moment in TNT, As you come back, bam, we get more excitement. Folks, despite all of the bacchanal and all jokes aside, if we want things to improve, we have to do our part ourselves. We can't complain about politicians and expect them to fix it, right? So, if today is going to be a good day, we have to make it so in part by ourselves, right? Make it a good day for yourself and those around you. Remember your allegiance to the Republic. We will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.